Really cute.
Oh, she's sleeping.
So we're missing one member, one committee member?
Yeah, just Peter. Has anyone talked to Peter?
I have not, no. Haven't had a chance.
Peter's coming.
Yay.
Oh, good.
Thanks, Helen. Cancel.
We don't have any public? Surprising. All right.
And
There he is.
go for it.
Hi,
Got it.
Peter.
You forgot to put your name. Just be like,
We want to get his
see her
camera
move for
going.
a sec.
Peter. No, you haven't got the E or the
I
P.
think that's Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Peter, I think whoever's with you, I want to get the camera, I think is the important part. The video. If you look in the bottom
Peter,
left.
can you see us?
Yes, I can see you. I apologize.
It's okay.
It was a long night last night.
Ooh.
See when
So on the bottom left of your screen, Peter, almost to the left, second to the left, there should say stop video. There's a little triangle to the right of that.
I have done that.
Okay.
Oh, I had that same problem a couple of meetings ago. Did you hit join with video when you joined?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the drop down from that arrow says video settings. Have you gone in there? Like that.
Are you on a laptop, Peter, or a Mac, or?
He's on a desktop. I am his daughter trying to help him.
Thank you. So in the video, when you click it, it might give you a chance for the camera, like is it integrated webcam
Okay.
possibly?
No.
What are we looking for?
One sec, just give me a sec, Dad.
We want to see your smiling face.
He's a, let's
Oh, it's
see.
right here.
Video settings, no. General. Original ratio. That's just really weird.
You got something called integrated camera, because that's what's checked on mine.
No, it says HP high definition 1 megapixel webcam.
That
just-
clicked?
Yep. Let's see. Did that do anything? No. Let's see. Nope. It's not.
So the other thing is to go into your actual settings in the computer and allow it for Zoom to access your camera.
Yeah, let me see if I can do that. Settings. Ah,
Don't we love technology sometimes?
mhm. Let's see.
I don't know, it used to work perfectly.
Let's see. Maybe if we log out and log back in.
Okay.
We can just carry on with
Or
just
just-
having Peter talking.
Yeah, just carry on that way. That's the best for him. His hair is a little fun, anyways.
Okay, so just YouTube won't know he's here at all, so his name won't show. We'll just have to keep
Well, his name's showing on my
he
screen.
doesn't on YouTube, but
Oh, doesn't?
so
Oh,
the
okay.
fans will need to be reminded. Okay, I'm gonna start us off because we don't have a chair at the moment, so I'll just call the meeting to order at 5:12. And just a quick approval of the agenda. We have the agenda you received, and then Chris sent a couple photos that Patrick may comment on. Can I get a mover for approval of the agenda, please?
I'll move that.
Thank you. Seconder? Let's do you.
Second.
Chris, you're on for seconding.
I'll
Second,
second it.
Thanks, Peter. All in favor?
Yes.
yes,
Hearing no opposition, great. And then just for the start of the meeting, we want to welcome our new member, Chris Kiintz. Welcome back to the committee.
thank you.
And thanks. And we want to have an election. It's the beginning of the year. So is there anybody who'd like to put their name forward to be chair of the Tunstall Bay Water System Local Advisory Committee?
I'll recommend Steph Jones.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. Yes,
You're a lot younger and therefore you've got a lot more time.
sure. Fair enough.
Peter's volunteering to babysit.
Oh, exciting.
Oh,
Thank
That's
you.
his carrot for sure.
Yes, yeah, I'll put myself forward. Thanks.
Okay, so Peter moving. I'm gonna call Steph seconding with that.
Sure.
Making it up. All in favor?
Yes,
yes.
Great.
Okay, great.
Do we need a vice chair? Any other youthful member want to be a vice chair?
I can perform that duty.
Okay, moved by Chris.
Second by Rankin.
Thank you, Rankin. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, great. Stephanie Jones, you can take the meeting, please.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm looking at the meeting package here. I have to just scroll over to where our agenda is. I assume it's probably a review and approval of minutes. Cool. Is that what comes next?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So looking at the adoption of our minutes from, it's last year, April 1st, 2022, that were included in this package. Personally, I had a look at them and they accurately represent what we discussed last year. Just as a point of process, when were these minutes shared and how?
They would have gone by email 72 hours after the meeting or 48 hours. after the meeting.
Okay, great. So as chair, can I move something?
Yes.
Okay, I move to approve the minutes.
Second,
Great. So I don't think we have anyone else who's joined. So we don't have any members of the public who'd like to speak. Alrighty. So then looking at the agenda, we next have Kristen. And your report. Yay, hello.
Hi, how are you? Nice to see everyone.
Good to see you.
Okay, so I put together a little quick slideshow for everyone. I'll share my screen. Give me a second, please. I'm hoping that you have, yeah, looks like you have the slideshow.
Yeah.
Moment. Okay, terrific. Thanks. I'll start off with the rate proposal for 2023. This was a rate proposal that we brought to the committee last year and was it had a rate proposal for each of the 5 years in the financial plan. So this would be the rate. We're in year 2 of the rate plan. This proposes that connected properties increase from $294 quarterly plus metered to $309 quarterly plus metered, and that the unconnected properties same 5% increase, go from $189 quarterly to $180 quarterly. There's no changes being proposed to the cutoff thresholds at which point metered rates change, but the actual rates themselves are also proposed to increase by 5%. This is a piece that's included from the agenda package, and it shows you here we are in year 2 of the 5-year plan. That would bring the 2023 draft budget revenue to $202,000. Last year, the budget revenue was $193,320. You can see we actually collected only $183,522, so we were a little bit under budget. It didn't present itself as a problem. It actually was kind of expected because we changed the way that we did the accrual for accounting purposes. The bill typically goes out near the end of February, and I think in prior years we had accrued that last quarterly bill to the previous year. We didn't do that last year, so our revenue was under budget for 2022. It'll be over, I expect to be over budget for 2023. So it's really just a timing thing. And I do expect that we'll achieve that revenue target of 202 this year. The revenues are expected to provide for all of the operating expenses, as well as a contribution to the reserve fund of $76,000. This budget is going to include a draw from surplus of $100,000. You'll see that in 2023 revenue there. And what that is the unspent parcel taxes that were collected last year, and we'll use them to pay down principal on the borrowed funds. So the loan was accessed in the 3rd quarter of last year. $655,530 was borrowed for the Tunstall Bay water system by the municipality. It was supposed to be paid back over a 5-year term. And so the first year we did collect parcel taxes of $117,705. So this is the principal payment that we'll be making. I'll make it in the next couple of weeks to make the first installment of a loan payment based on that 5-year original plan. Now, last year, you might remember that we were asked to look into an extension of the parcel tax loan repayment to extend that repayment over a longer period of time. We looked into it with the MFA, that's the Municipal Finance Authority, and they suggested like if we wanted to formally go and do it, we'd have to go through the whole approval process again. But what they did offer up was a potential to we can access interim borrowing, which is how the loan is sitting right now. It works like a line of credit. So we have a $655,000 line of credit. We can keep that line of credit going for up to 5 years, make any combination of minimum interest plus any kind of principal payment that we want for a period of up to 5 years, at which time we either have to repay the funds in full or we can lock it into that short-term loan facility that we've already been pre-approved for 5 years. So effectively what that does is give us the opportunity to extend the loan term from a very fixed 5-year term up to 10-year term by accessing that temporary borrowing credit facility first and then entering into the short-term 5-year loan provision. So this is what I think is the best method, the best way to achieve that extension of the loan to enable us to collect a smaller annual parcel tax, which will provide some degree of relief for property owners, and also not have to go through the whole authorization process again. It also achieves an ability to use some flexibility, because as long as that loan is in this short-term interim like mechanism, if there were a property owner who say wanted to pay out their portion of the loan right away, we can, like I said, we can pay down any combination of interest and principal at this point because it is like a line of credit. So that option would be there if there was a property owner who wanted to, get rid of their portion of the loan and not have to worry about parcel tax anymore. So it gives us more flexibility. It allows people to stretch the loan over a longer period of time and just provide some tax relief there. The proposed new parcel tax, then, if we maintain it in this interim borrowing facility, would reduce the rate, the parcel tax, from 848 down to 565 for the connected properties, and would reduce the unconnected properties down to 339. Annually, we'd need to collect about $78,000 to do that. So I'm proposing that be done. It would stretch it out into a 9-year repayment term, and again allowing that parcel tax to be collected and extending the loan over the longer term. For operating expenses this year, they have been increased in years 2 to 5 by 3% over 2023 levels. This year, the salaries amount increase, we've allowed a provision for salary increases at 4%. This is a year of contract negotiations with our outside QP staff. So there are probably going to be some requirements coming out of the final union negotiations that we don't quite know yet. We haven't started the bargaining process yet, but we do expect to begin that process imminently. There's let's see this part. Oh, sorry. No. Sorry, I wanted to just talk about that loan principal repayment there for you'll see in 2023 for $150,224. So that is where we've added the one-off loan principal repayment that is coming. It's being funded from the collected parcel tax that we collected last year. So 100,000 of that is going to be loan principal. So the new loan amount that we're calculating interest on from this year forward will be based on 555,000 instead of 655,000. And the interest this year would equate to about $50,000 of interest. There is some more documentation detailing the pay down plan under this 9 years. So please refer to your agenda package for that information. So the years 2 to 5, we've increased those operating expenses by 3% in each of those years. Of course, many of the expenses that we do typically incur, fuel and insurance, those types, are typically increased in excess of 3%. So that's why we are suggesting that the rate increases do continue to be 5%. It gives us a little bit of flexibility there in case some of the expenses that we incur are significantly higher than what we planned on. For the capital budget, there's not much in there. We anticipate completing the reservoir construction project. There's about $100,000 of expenses remaining to to be spent in this fiscal year. That was as at December 31st last year. So that will be funded as a draw from the reserve fund. There's a provision to complete the water optimization study that it didn't go forward last year, so we've put it back into the budget again this year. It is funded in part by a $10,000 grant, so you will see that $10,000 grant on the revenue side. And then we've also put in a provision for 12,000 or so for any unanticipated equipment failure replacements. And there's a $50,000 provision here to undertake repairs to water mains or service connections. It's not planned, it's there as a contingency, and we'll just keep putting that in the first year of the 5-year plan going forward each year. It's there just to be precautionary. We do have $200,000, which is kind of a carry forward amount. It's been in the budget for a couple of years now. It's included as the cost to upgrade the PRV, the pressure reducing valve chamber, and that's located at the fork where White Sails and Tunstall split there. And it is a long-standing requirement that be upgraded. So on the fund balance side, the plan allows for annual contributions to reserves because we want to ensure the long-term financial sustainability of the water system. We are continuing work on our asset management plan, and that is going to inform future decisions, about what those ideal reserve levels should be, and making sure that we fund them adequately each year. So we are recommending that the user rate increases be implemented, and we want to ensure that the revenues keep pace with anticipated growth in expenditures, and making sure that we can maintain those dedicated contributions to reserves. So that is.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kristen. Really appreciate the presentation and the clarity with which you're presenting the information. Really appreciate it. I have a few questions, Chris and Peter. I don't know if you do as well. Is that okay? Should I just jump in? Okay. I guess the first one is just a quick one in terms of whether we're doing the same or similar things to the other utilities and water systems. So I think the rate increases make sense. It's similar to, inflation. It's actually less than inflation. It's what we're seeing in the world today. What are the other water systems doing in terms of an increase? Is this similar, more or less?
There are some water systems that I would say are more financially challenged than Tunstall. Tunstall has maintained a history of dedicated annual reasonable rate increases. So it seems, from my perspective, it's in a bit better financial situation than some of the other ones, where we are seeing inadequate levels of reserve funding. We are definitely recommending rates be increased higher than 5%. We're seing that in Cove Bay. We're seeing it in the sewer utility, that we're looking at rates that are recommended increases that are significantly higher than the 5%.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I think this is kind of what we'd like to see as a base responsible rate increase that is just, like you said, keeping pace with inflation, or a little bit what we hope to be a little bit higher than.
It would be nice if that was higher than inflation. And then so on the rate increases, I'm not sure if I quite caught it, but I understand we're increasing our base rate, which makes sense. Are we increasing the metered rate?
Yep, they are at the same 5% as well.
Okay, so both sections will be increased at the 5% increment. Okay, thanks for that. Great. So I don't have any other comments on the metered rate increases. They make sense. I think, I wish we didn't have to increase it, but that's the world that we live in. And I think it's on pace and on par with the increases that we're seeing everywhere else. And it's a adequate or reasonable place for us to be drawing funds from to include in our reserve. Peter or Chris, do you have any other thoughts or comments on the rate?
I had a quick question. There's no expectation of any developer contributions during that 5 years?
There are no lots that would be looking at, or nothing that I'm aware of that has been applied for any kind of development over and above what it's already zoned for. So it's pretty much all single family homes. People want to connect a home, they pay a connection fee and they join the water system. It's
Maybe
situations
that's-
where you're
it-
increasing zoning, then that's when we're looking at getting developer contributions, things like that.
And that would be something that the wider council would have to consider, a change to that structure where we have even single lot residential developments bringing in more in terms of development permits. Is that correct?
Bringing in development permits.
You mean building permits?
Building permits, yeah, something where any kind of capital infrastructure that's placed, even if it's a single residential home, changing the structure, that making sure that we're getting more than just a single hookup.
But
'Cause
they're
they're-
already
they're-
paying a fee as an unconnected lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, what I'm saying is an increase in those fees.
Oh, you mean you want to charge the unconnected properties more?
And when they're ready to develop that property, an increase in the development costs for that as well.
Well, there isn't any charge other than their connection charge.
Then that, yeah, I'm saying that we might want to consider that, absolutely.
Sorry, I'm not sure that I understand that. So in a new residential home, they would be transferring over from an undeveloped lot cost, and you're proposing that new home, that new lot would have a different rate structure than all the established homes?
No, I'm saying that whatever cost they would have to, there's a cost they have to spend just to get onto the system. Is that correct?
The hookup for the meter and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Is there a way that we can increase those costs?
Oh,
the hookup charges now are about $1,500 per connection,
Wow, that's low.
but that's the fee to pay the water utility operator to go out and connect a meter. So
About a third of the cost that Gibson charges for it.
okay.
Their fees for, yeah, I'm looking that up now.
The
They
costs are
charge
higher.
for, sorry?
If the costs are higher than that, they are being recovered. It's just you're not wrong that the base fee is often higher than that. For the most simple residential meter, pop it in, that's probably fine. But a lot of situations are more complicated than that.
like, for example, there's a home on Reef Road that joined recently. There was some additional work that needed to be done to access the infrastructure, things like that. So there was additional billings that are compensating for time.
They're not getting a free ride. In other words, they're paying for the full cost of connecting.
Yeah,
Right. But Chris, I think what you're also bringing up is it's perhaps a good opportunity also just for contributions to the reserve.
Well, there's
Um,
legacy infrastructure there that would be great if there was a way to make sure that as new developments come on, that some of that is recovered.
But they're paying for that already in the unconnected annual base fee, Chris, and they're not getting any water
and they're paying parcel taxes too.
and parts of
Right.
taxes for the debt.
If there's a property, and there are a few properties that are large enough to subdivide, if a property is added to the system, either by expanding the boundary or by subdividing properties within the boundary, then there's larger contributions to the infrastructure that we have a policy that lays out what that is, and it's several $1,000s per property.
But if they're
Right.
not adding anything that's already allowed by existing zoning, then they're just subject to the connection fee.
And other related costs if there are more.
Right.
Gibson's may have a different kind of meter too.
That's possible.
Like
Yeah.
the remote read meters are more expensive than the meters that we've been installing, correct, Patrick?
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe that's where I'm seeing the difference in cost then.
Or maybe they don't charge unconnected properties, parcel taxes and user fees all the way along. But in Tunstall Bay, there has always been a fee
Yeah, it
charge,
looks like that's in their budget.
whether the
do
lot's
get-
connected or not.
Yeah, they do charge those for unconnected. There is a fee for unconnected. An ongoing fee, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like, Chris, we've clarified that area. Is there any proposal
that's
for
it.
an increase to that? Okay. Great, makes sense.
Can I just
Um,
ask a question about the water tank? It's coming in a little bit more than budget, Patrick? If there's still 100,000 to spend and 669's already been spent? You're muted.
No, it's within budget. The budget included some contribution from reserves as well as the borrowed funds.
Oh, okay.
It's just the main issue has been delay. They had an issue with leakage in the steel tank itself, which they've repaired, and now it's still leaking a small amount, and they've repaired they've redone the injection of the caulking at the base of where the steel tank meets the concrete, and then waiting for that to cure, and we'll be refilling that starting end of this week, and then we'll know, we'll confirm next week. I expect we will confirm next week that leakage is that it's not leaking, and be put into service then commission everything, put it into service the following week. So mid-April, it's reasonable that we have everything completed, not tank in service.
I went and had a look at it a few months back, and it was quite an impressive tank. They were just finishing up.
Yeah. Okay, I have a few questions about engineering as well, but maybe let's finish up on finance first before we switch over. So then your question, Allison, I think that was answered about the new tank. Okay.
Yeah.
So keeping on finance, the second area was the extension from the 5 years to the 9 years. Personally, I think that's a great middle ground. I also, cheered and when I saw that there was an option for owners to pay down the entire amount. I think that is fantastic option. I know some folks in the neighborhood might do that. And so having that ability, I think will perfectly meet the two types of owners that we see in our neighborhood. Folks that are here, for 30 years and folks that may not be. And I think that achieves the equity issue that we were looking for. In terms of communicating this option, did you have any thoughts on that, or is that up to us on the committee to communicate to our neighbors, or how do we let folks know about this option to pay down, or what the new cost will be?
I have a question for Councillor Morris. Changing this financing model, is this something you think that council requires to approve, or we just notify them that that this is what's happening? Or what are your thoughts on the piece about communicating that to council?
So how many people got notice of the meeting today, Steph? Do you know how many are on the mail out list? And it was advertised in the news from BIM in the undercurrent this weekend, Thursday, which was a mail drop, so everybody would have gotten it. So I guess the question, so
Through the paper, yeah.
So I guess I'm thinking we probably should advise everybody, just say that the LAC has supported it, and this was requested by a lot of people when we had that last public information meeting, as I recall. We could probably dig that out of the minutes. But and just make sure that people know that they've got, how long do they have to pay down if they want to pay it all in full?
Well, to your point, Steph, I think this actually is a really great solution, because if somebody wanted to stay on that 5-year term, they could do it over the 5 years if that's what they were really, felt strongly about. But
Oh, so
um,
really, okay. So I guess all
as
options
long
are
as it's in
possible, but
this, as long as it's in this interim credit line of credit facility, we have that flexibility to pay as much as we want. So
so do you, well, I mean,
Okay.
do you need to keep track of it in in any
Oh,
way?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
let's
yeah.
say that, I'm a home, would want to pay 30% and then 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess that's possible. It sounds like I could do whatever
Yeah.
within the 9-year term. Do we want to allow homeowners to do?
I mean, I'd
Whatever.
rather not. I'd rather keep
Yeah.
it to a minimum because it is a
Yeah, you'll have to
big
keep track of
challenge
it.
for sure.
So I
So-
mean, it sounds like it would be best if it's
All
or
or
maybe
nothing.
3 options, or the one that you just brought up is maintain the 5-year schedule, the 9-year schedule, or everything.
Yeah,
Nothing else. I mean, you're either gonna follow the 5-year, follow the 3-year, or the 9-year, or pay it
9-year.
all up front.
Yeah, yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you're gonna pay it all up front, when do they have to do that by?
they can do it anytime before it's converted into a fixed 5-year.
So they've got about, what, 6 months maybe, max? or
No,
less?
4.5.
Or 4
4
years. Yeah.
4 years, yeah.
Oh, so we're just gonna keep it as a variable rate loan for the first 5 years.
Correct.
Okay, but people can reduce their payments now and do it on a 9-year spread.
Well, we're gonna set a parcel tax. People are gonna pay the parcel tax, or they're going to opt out of the parcel tax by paying it all off. I guess we can only really opt.
Yeah, I
opt
think with the parcel
option.
tax option, it's not a payment, a fee option. You're gonna have to go with either the 9 years or all up front.
Yeah,
Or I guess they could pay half up front and no, because you gotta charge everybody the same parcel tax amount.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds,
They can
Yeah,
pay it off, or they can go with the 9-year, and we have to. We've never done this before, so.
yeah.
So
We're learning as we
kind of
go.
learning as we go with this one, but
I think on that basis,
Yeah.
we need to advise the community that this is
these are your 2 options.
these are
Yes.
their 2 options. And if there's any flack, then we'll have to think about it.
Well, I don't see why there would be any flack. I mean, those who would want to save interest, you pay up front and.
Well,
and
no,
those-
they might not have enough to pay up front, but they were able to meet the 5-year spread. So they're saving on interest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, could we do it by exception then?
Cross that bridge if we hear.
Right, have some text such as, here are your 2 options. If you feel very strongly that you needed to do the 5-year, please get in touch and we can do it by exception.
Or
Something.
we sort of say, this is what we're planning on doing. We're letting you know. And if we get feedback,
Yeah.
then
So we should do that, I think, by mail drop. I think we should send
Yeah.
Yeah.
a direct mailing to every property owner in Tunstall Bay, outlining the options,
yeah,
as well as the typical municipal communication channels.
Yeah.
Social
Yeah.
media and.
because you're going to need responses from the people who might want to pay it off.
Well, not necessarily, right? Like you don't. need
Yeah,
to-
because otherwise they're going to get a parcel tax bill.
Yeah, you have to make people aware.
Yeah, you have to make people aware, but Kristen and her staff, they don't need to track who's planning on paying.
Oh,
what,
right.
Right?
Not unless we hear from them. Otherwise, everybody goes on the same parcel tax. If they want to do something alternatively, then
I see. So if someone wants to pay up front, you do need to know and it will be. tracked.
Otherwise, they're
Right.
going, we need the check so that we don't get a parcel tax bill sent out.
Right. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Is this administratively, it sounds a little difficult, but I mean, there won't probably be that many people paying.
I don't think
Okay.
there will.
Yeah.
People have, they have the legislated authority to opt out of a parcel tax by paying it upfront. So,
And once it's done, and then the parcel tax roll just stays the same. Do we have to do a parcel tax review board?
just gonna amend the existing one.
We've got a parcel tax already.
Yep.
So you're just gonna charge a higher
We
amount.
just have to amend it.
Okay.
And in that communication, can we just show the math on the difference in interest? Just so it's
Yeah.
really clear
I'm
to
gonna make
folks.
an assumption because it's a floating rate of interest, so
Right. Yeah, whatever your best assumption is, just so
Yeah.
folks are making that informed decision on what
Yeah.
this interest savings
What
would
is the floating rate right now?
right now it's about, I want to say just over 5, but I know that actually they've come, I haven't looked this week, but they're actually trending lower right now, so it's good news. In fact, it actually makes sense to hold it in interim at this point right now, knowing that interest rates are likely going to
Oh,
start
they're gonna go
down.
down. Yeah.
and locking it in at a better rate of interest when that time finally comes. So yeah, it's actually a much better way to manage this debt.
It's exciting. That's great.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm-
I'm really glad you guys asked.
Yeah, I'm glad that we found a middle road.
Yeah.
I'm always excited by middle roads. Okay, so we have our action item, which is to communicate this. Do we have any timeline when it makes sense to do this by?
We'll start doing it probably pretty soon. What we need to do is get a recommendation. What we need to have from the committee is a recommendation to amend the parcel tax to the lower amount, which will provide for the extension, because that has to be done by bylaw, a parcel tax rate amendment bylaw. So that will have to go through council. So
Okay,
we'll need that recommendation supported by the LAC to take that to council. And then we can start the communication piece after that.
I see. So is that something we move on at this point of the agenda? Sorry, I'm in the.
We have a two-pronged recommendation, which includes the 5-year plan and the parcel tax piece. I just added little bits to the parcel tax piece. We can maybe.
Kristen, I think we need to advise the Tunstall Bay people before we take that bylaw to council. But this is what we're going to be doing.
Okay.
And then we can say when somebody asks that you know, we've advised the community and nobody has objected.
Okay. Then we'll get started on that communication piece tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, okay, that makes sense.
And you guys can post it once we've done it on your Tunstall Bay website or Facebook
Yes.
page too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll do that. And it's fair for me to post or to allude to this, that it's coming, right? If I
Oh,
were,
I would just wait, once it's done, and ready to be mailed out, then you can post it as well.
okay, sure,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Or you could post the link to this agenda material because it's all set out in the reports.
That's right. Yeah, okay,
Yeah, you could certainly post the link to this agenda and say we discussed it.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is a public meeting.
Absolutely. Okay, good. So then before we vote on the recommendation, there's one other topic area that I just wanted to bring up. And that was your thoughts, your advice, your recommendations on how we're doing on our capital reserve. You know, we've made all these changes to our rates, we're increasing them. Have we ripped the Band-Aid off enough? Are we actually accruing enough funds such that for our next replacement in hopefully 30 years, we're allocating enough to our capital reserve fund for that next project or the other projects that will come in between?
I would honestly say that, of course, the completion of the asset management plan is going to provide a more informed opinion on that. But at least for the time being, I think that you're doing all of the right things, which is making dedicated, you know, meaningful contributions to that reserve fund. There's also a lot of schools of thought around how much of a future improvement needs to be funded by current users versus using debt in the future. You know, there's some people who believe that all of that should be funded through debt versus some people who believe, you know, it should be a balance. I think where it's landing really is that future infrastructure should really kind of be funded on a 50-50 model, 50% reserves, 50% debt, and that kind of matches the life of the asset to the generations of people who actually benefit from it. So I think I would suggest that with contributions as they've been established and made, that it's definitely on the right road, on the right path. And
Okay.
yeah, I would say just
There isn't, I mean, it is low. There isn't capacity to do anything significant without borrowing money.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind. It definitely extends the process substantially when you have to go through a borrowing process. And it's not, you know, the preference of going through that borrowing money and paying off a loan versus building up reserves to a level where you can actually deal with significant amount of water main replacement, which is coming up and we don't have in this budget that was presented. And last year there was a major leak in towards the lower end of white sales.
Yeah.
The water main was only 15 inches down, and it was pushed into a sharp rock and failed. And so there's a section there that's definitely at risk and is going to need to be addressed. That's at the current rate of reserves and contributing to reserves. That's going to be a borrowing process that will have to be. We haven't got that figured out. We've got a significant item in the PRV chamber. There's going to also be system renewal costs coming up before, sooner than later. So
That's a
it would be nice
200.
to have more reserves to be able to better respond to those needs.
Is the 215,000 the PRV chamber, the one that's in the 2024 capital?
It's been in the budget for a long time.
Long time.
So I'm looking at your utilization of reserves. So you've got 287,000 for 2023, 100 of which is the balance of the tank. And then you've got another 87, but you've got 287, so there's an extra 100 somewhere. Your capital expenditures are 50, 37, and 100, so that's 187.
Yeah, no, the extra 100 is coming out of surplus. It's last year's parcel taxes that were collected to pay down the principal. It's sitting in the operations.
Reserves in the 5-year plan there do get below 100,000, right? It's not a lot of reserves for capital renewal of a system of this size.
But it gets
But
over
also
100.
that PRV chamber, like, is that it seems to just keep carrying forward year after year.
Well, I mean, it has to be done at some point. I mean, the whole
Is that
system
enough,
would have to
Patrick?
be.
I mean, it's quite a significant project, isn't it?
Well, it's very deep, and it's not safe to go in there. So it's something that has to be dealt with.
No, but I mean, is 215 still a realistic estimate?
215. Well, it's realistic. I mean, it's the ballpark. It might be more than that, though. That's possible.
I feel like what I'm hearing is from a financial perspective, it's probably adequate, but from an engineering or maybe medium-term perspective, maybe not. When will the asset management report be done? And I think that will speak to the engineering perspective of what we might need in the medium term. Such that probably by next year, then we could be in a better position to be looking at our rates based on this asset management plan.
Yeah, next year is a reasonable time frame.
Okay. And we would have more time to review that asset management plan, because I know Steph Short was explaining how tight these timelines are for this budget period, but we would have more time to review the asset management plan to come up with different rates prior to next year, I would hope. I don't
A good objective, yeah.
know. Okay. Sounds like maybe not really. All right. So
No.
it'll
Well,
be a
I
yes.
think that as
We
soon
shoot
as
for
we
that.
get the information, like one
Yeah.
of the first things we'll want to do is to share it with every single utility and share that information. You know, and if that's well in advance of a budgeting process, that's a great reason to meet too, so.
okay.
What kind of pipe is the piping in the ground, Patrick?
It's iron,
Oh, it's cast iron.
ductile iron.
So, and it was probably put in the 70s, early 70s. So it's theoretically could have a few more
Somewhere
years.
in there. It's not, it's been in the ground a while, and some of it, the bedrock's quite high, and they just probably didn't want
Properly
to
vet it,
last,
yeah.
and it's installed quite shallow, and so it's vulnerable, as we saw. I mean, there was a leak that, you know, drained the whole reservoir very quickly, so.
But some of it's more vulnerable than others.
Yeah, and we don't really know the full extent of that shallow section. Or, you know, in that particular spot, it wasn't installed properly. It may have been just that stretch with the high bedrock, but we do need to look into this more.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, so finishing off our finance conversation, I just had one small request just for note taking and posterity. Kristen, in your report, would you mind including for the staffing section where these percentage allocations came from? I assume we have that rationale somewhere. That Tunstall Bay is
Percentage allocations? Oh, yeah. it's
9%.
Based on number of connections.
Perfect. If we could just include that note, just so we know it into the future. It's not
Oh,
something.
no,
that
we
we
haven't
can-
said what the formula is, yeah.
Yeah, just so it's not something to negotiate or, you know,
That's the one that we've used.
right. Yeah, so we won't nickel and dime our neighbors or whatever else. Great. Okay, so then should we move on the recommendation? So this is right, as you say, it's a two-prong recommendation on the overall 5-year financial plan, as well as the parcel tax being extended from 5 to 9 years, and that change in price to 565 and 339 for unconnected properties. But any,
And I feel like it might, if you're going to be communicating this resolution, then it might be nice to have two separate ones so we can just plop the whole thing into comms.
sorry, break it into two resolutions?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you guys know.
Unless they're gonna vote differently. Yeah, maybe. Okay, got you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay, so then let's break it into two. Do you call them
I don't know,
resolutions or
Kristen doesn't want
recommendations?
that. She suggested it as one. I just thought for communications, it might be easier, but I'm not getting a lot of enthusiasm from our CFO. I don't think so.
No, I'm ambivalent, I'm fine.
And the parcel tax that's been reflected in your financial plan, right? The 9-year spread, so
Yeah,
you really,
78,000.
Mhm.
Well, then if we do the parcel tax one separately, then we can include in it that there are the options to pay one payment up front and second option to pay over the 9 years.
well, that payment upfront option was there in the first place. I think you need to do the parcel tax first. Because if the parcel tax doesn't pass, then your financial plan isn't right, correct, Kristen?
Why?
Because you've got the 9 years for the financial plan, for the payment calculation for the
Mhm.
parcel taxes.
Mhm.
Yeah. So do the parcel tax resolution first.
Okay, that makes sense. So then we will split these resolutions into two. And the
Yep.
first resolution that will vote on is the parcel tax to be extended from 5 to 9 years.
You're
And
gonna
I'm,
move
yeah, I'm happy to move that.
Seconded.
All agreed?
Great. All agreed. So then the second resolution that we will vote on is the overall 5-year financial plan that we've just discussed. I'm happy to move that as well.
Seconded.
And
Don't
do we
fight
know-
over it, you guys.
All agreed.
All agreed, that's right.
Okay. Great. So then over to you, Patrick, for the rest of the engineering.
Okay, well, I think we've spoken about the main things in response to other questions. Tank is almost done. Well, it's done, it's just final stages. And I mentioned the concern about the water mains, the PRV that needs to be replaced. The aquifer assessment and well optimization study is that's a carryover from last year. We didn't have all of the monitoring equipment installed in time to really get a proper assessment during the summer period, which is the most important. And so the bulk of that work is deferred to this year. 33,000 to 10,000 of which would be grant funded from an infrastructure planning grant. Similar to I don't know if anyone's looked at the aquifer assessment and well optimization studies for the west side water systems, the other west side water systems aquifers. It would be a similar type of assessment, looking at, well, what is the sustainable yield of all of our wells, and are they being used as efficiently as they should be? Some may have better yield and capacity and would benefit from increasing, and others maybe are drawing too much and compromising the aquifers. So that would be something we'd have some information on later this year, and certainly when we meet next year, we'll have a much better handle on the water resource itself that supports the system. And
The 10K. Oh, sorry.
other than that, that's really those are the capital engineering related elements that we're looking at.
So we have the budget for that aquifer report that you just described.
That was in the budget, yes.
Okay, great.
And it's partially grant funded too.
Yeah.
Planning grant is a nice one. It's easy to get and
So okay, then maybe we have a second to keep talking about that similar topic. If you brought up the possible weakness and repair at that White Sales Point. So I'm looking at the fund balance. It's going down to 89,000, and we're contributing however much that is a year, 165 and 250, 338. Yeah, like you said, if anything should happen in the next 1 to 2 years, we have very little to contribute to any capital projects. Is that a risk that's reasonable, or?
It's definitely a risk. I mean, I would say it's better to have more funds to be able to. I think the funds are having the ability to respond using reserve funds that are built up for that purpose is definitely the least risk approach that you can take to.
I guess maybe I can ask it a different way: is do we think that that project that you described, is that something we're going to have to look at next year or the year after?
Talking about the well optimization?
No, the leaks and
The
leak
water
spot.
main. Yeah, I mean, that's something that we'll be looking at this year and have a better idea about the scale of, of water main that we're concerned about.
Okay.
But it could be, something that, we're gonna have to go for another borrowing for in the near future. That's possible.
It all depends on whether you have to do all the water mains or just some of them.
Yeah, I don't expect it's all of them that we have this concern about. It's an area that's still to be determined.
Gotcha. And did I hear, is there a leak in the new tank?
The new tank wasn't holding water to the level it was, the contract documents required. So that's why it should have been in service by now.
Yeah.
And it isn't because it's being redone. Part of it's being redone.
I see.
Not preferred, obviously, but that's why we're looking at mid-April having it in service.
Patrick, maybe you should explain to everybody how the tank was put together, because I was quite surprised to see that it came in sort of rings, and each of the rings and even sections of the rings, and they all had to be caught. So it isn't one great big huge tank that comes all in one big piece.
Okay.
No, it's bolted together. There's the concrete foundation is installed for it, and then the bolted steel tank is erected on that. So
all the seams had to be caught.
yeah, that what they did redid recently was the sealing at the concrete and steel interface. So yeah, usually things go more smoothly than this, but that's what happened here.
Right. And the contractor is being held to the standard that they promised. Are there any problems there or increased costs or?
No, I mean, just schedule impacts. I mean, that's why there's still $100,000 to be paid on project is, they have to demonstrate that the tank doesn't leak, right, and that meets all of the requirements before they can get their final payment.
Okay, I understand. Yeah. Good. Good. Okay, so it sounds like we don't have any specific action items in the engineering area, or is there any follow-ups needed?
I don't think there's a need for any resolutions, just information.
Okay. Anybody else? Chris, Peter?
No, I'm good, thanks.
All righty. So I'm looking back at the agenda, and then I think we did put it under new business. Was Chris, what you had forwarded those photos?
Right. I guess the road, it's a private road, and I guess something of a public easement, because I know that it's utilized by the municipality to get down to the pumping station that's at the bottom there of Reef Road. Whoever the owner is now, back in March 7th, they brought in a backhoe, a huge backhoe, and expanded the road by a meter on each side. And my understanding that it wasn't something they had necessarily asked to do. They just kind of did it. It's a riparian area. I've been understanding there were special permits that were required, but they did go ahead and expand the road by a meter on both sides without installing any kind of fencing to keep material from going into the creek. So the creek ended up taking quite a bit of material on both sides, both the side where water is drawn from the the well and the opposite side of that road. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that road at all, but it goes directly over Explosive Creek, which is where we draw some of our water. And there was, I'm guessing, quite a few cubic meters of material that went into the creek. After I called bylaw, because I was under the impression that they would have required some kind of permit before expansion of that road. They were advised to put up some kind of fencing to keep material from continuing to fall into that. They put up very temporary, what I hope is very temporary material. And that material since then has collapsed. So there's material going back into the watershed again. And I spoke to Doug again today regarding that. And they also have created a culvert for the road to drain now into into the well area for drinking water. So there's a very large culvert that is draining now into that. I guess Doug went and told them that there's an issue with that. They put up a couple stakes and a trash bag to keep the water from continuing to drain into where we draw our water from. In the summer months, that pump generally isn't running. I can always hear it when it's running, and it's generally in the summer months. So I don't know if they received permission to create that drainage culvert, because road drainage now is going to be going into that, and the silt that is carried by it is going to go into that. So I don't know if permits were approved, if an engineering, any kind of engineering study was done prior to that, but quite a bit of work has been done on that road that is directly affecting the creek, which is it is a fish-bearing creek. So there are some issues with that, in addition to the fact that, of course, we draw water from there.
Yeah, so that's something we're going to have to look into in more detail. I'm not aware of permits being issued by the municipality. Certainly sounds like it's in a development permit area. There was no permits that we would have issued for this culvert. That would require also provincial permitting under the Water Sustainability Act. I don't know whether those permits were applied for or received. These are things I'm going to have to look into, but yeah, certainly the surface water pattern that you're describing is concerning. So we will look into this.
I know the first time when they went out there, then they spoke to the property owner. It was understood that what they were doing was simply driveway maintenance, just re-graveling their road there. But I mean, if there's additional work that's been done or something that would be done under the development permit, then we can go back and have a look at it and make sure that they are conforming to what they initially said they were doing. But yeah, we can have our bylaw, we can have our manager of environment and parks go have another look down there. You said you phoned Doug today, Chris?
Yeah, I asked Doug to go take another look. It was not maintenance, it's road expansion, considerable road expansion, 3 meter or meter on either side. So that, and if it's also a special permit area, it's a riparian area. So if there were no permits
Probably needs a
requested,
development permit.
right?
But it doesn't need a development permit if they're just doing driveway maintenance. But if they're extending the footprint of it, then my understanding is that they would need
They
that.
need a permit.
Yeah, and I do have photographs before and after. And they expanded to the point where you understand there's material collapsing into the creek.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
how much they
I'll follow up
expanded it.
with Doug and manager of Parks and Environment tomorrow.
And this was March 7th, by the way, that this took place. And so we're quite a bit from that date. And like I said, the fencing that's been placed up, if that's not going to be maintained, I don't know, I don't understand how we're supposed to keep material out of there.
Okay, I will follow up with both of them and we'll see. I don't think there's anything further with this group of people that we can.
Other than, you might want to go take a look, the other members, just to get an idea of what's happened down there.
Sure. Can go walk by.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound great. Yeah, for sure. Good to know. Okay, so we have our action item then, I guess, out of that one, and we'll have that follow up.
Yep.
Okay, any other new items? Okay, so looking at the agenda, I see we have information to share, the 2022 Island Plan. We can all have a read about.
That's the one was last year.
Yeah, I
You
don't
wanna
have
get
the
it?
new one yet. It's
That's
just a
Oh.
standard. It's
We're
always
going.
in there.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
don't waste your time. New one coming.
Oh, good. And then next meeting, could I request that we have a fall meeting? Just, we can coincide that with hopefully the asset management plan. That
It's an
might.
annual information meeting that's held, and that's usually in the late summer or early fall. And so, and that's a community-wide meeting where all the community's invited,
Specifically about the Tunstall Bay system.
but it's specifically about Tunstall Bay.
Maybe I
We
missed
had-
that one this year.
Well, we had it last year.
Yeah, the timing has changed. Sometimes we try to have it before summer just to get the water conservation
Yeah.
vibe going with the community. Sometimes if the budget's early, we'll do it in the fall to dovetail with that. So we'll make it relevant. How about
Right, to have one other meeting in the fall prior to this meeting.
whenever
'Cause-
works?
So
Yeah.
my request is that if this committee is supposed to be representative of our community, having this 4 days, 5 days, or whatever it is, in advance, getting the information about the budget and the engineering report is not enough for us to be representative of our community members. So if we're given information at least a few months, or at least there's one other meeting where we can think about these topics, we'll know more or less what's coming down the pipe. We can at least attempt to be more transparent and democratic in our community. So that would be my request. Does that make sense, Kristen and Patrick? Okay. Excellent. Anything else before we adjourn?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, lovely connecting with all of you, and it's nice to hear that, I guess barring some of the not so not so ideal items on our water system, but it is looking like it will be operational shortly. So some good things to be able to communicate to our neighbors in terms of options for paying down the new water system, and that it's coming online soon. Is I think what we'll be focusing on for key messages. Good. All right.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the sunshine.
Yes, you as
Good
well.
night, all.
Thanks
Night.
all.
Bye. Thank you.
Nice to see your smiling face, Peter.
I don't know if you can see it or not.
You look great.